أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. So welcome to this channel. It's called The Son of a Sociopath Breaking Free because that's literally what my life is right now. I'm the son of a Pakistani sociopath who's used Islam, Pakistani culture, and the American legal system to basically enslave me and then to discard me, which, if you're familiar with sociopathic behavior and pharaonic behavior, if you come from Abrahamic monotheistic traditions, then you're familiar with the type of behavior that pharaohs, tyrants, and sociopaths enact. You can be coming from an Abrahamic monotheistic perspective or a modern psychological sociopathic uh, narcissistic spectrum kind of perspective, and either way you're aware of this type of psychological dynamic that these type of people do. Instead of calling toward bondage toward the deity, toward the creator of all, they want to be the worship, they want to be the deity, they want to be worshipped by everyone around them, right? So this is the psychology of a narcissist. And so basically this channel, I'm 32 years old, so just to set like a time mark or a time stamp on this, I'm 32 years old and I'm into my fourth month of being 32 years old. So I have 8 more months of being 32. And basically, my whole life, I watched my sociopathic father enslave and abuse my mother and foster codependencies within my mother's psyche, and also foster codependencies in my maternal family psyche, to the point where he is now like he is their god and they all worship him. They're like their courtesans, they're his worshippers, and they all worship him, and they're all fully codependent on him in a way that they can't break free of. And me, as the oldest son, I have certain rights in Islam. I have certain rights or certain expectations that are common in Pakistani culture, like our reference group of families for our family, the way they treat their children, that type of cultural reference. And third, in the American legal system, that's not really in our family. The context was never like, oh, like we're going to go off of American cultural norms and we're going to enforce the legal system. It was always like my dad had a disproportionate amount of power upon us because because he was the dad, like a Muslim father and a Pakistani father. But the thing is, in all three of those systems, right, there's corresponding roles of obligations and expectations. So father, son, Muslim son, Pakistani father, Pakistani son, American father, American son. And all the advantages of all three of those he's taken, depending on what stage of life we're at. He takes all those advantages and then he puts all the disadvantages in my part, right? So it's like it's a hybrid of all three of those systems and corresponding identities, but he has the advantages of all of them, and I have the disadvantages of all of them. And so what people don't understand is, especially people like Dr. Romney, who's amazing as a resource for sociopathy, is that culture and religion are these things, especially as the son of an immigrant and into America, like immigration, religion, and culture are these three things that can 1,000 times magnify the power that a sociopath can have over his victims, right? And so I'm at 32 years old. Just to be completely open, um, my father has done everything he possibly can to prevent me from having sexual relationships in my life. And until I think I was 26, I was a virgin. I never even considered it, and I'm not like I'm still a devout Muslim. I just believe in a progressive implementation of Sharia on an individual life and collective Muslim life. And so I just believe that if you're not going to allow a person to get married at puberty, which is the Islamic dictate about the situation, is yes, celibacy until marriage, but marriage at puberty, right? So there's not extended celibacy in Islam, right? That doesn't exist. But like I said, he's taking all the advantages and putting all the disadvantages on my side. So like that's the essence of life, right? Sexuality is the essence of life, and if someone's preventing you from having sexual relationship and sexual life, male female relationships, when you most need them in life, and kind of blunting your ability to form those type of relationships later in life, that's one of the most devastating things that can be done to a human person, right? To a human personality. And so that's one of the things. The second things he's done is uh, basically the more like he tried to enslave me, and I just wasn't having it because I saw what he was doing to my mom, and my mom fostered awareness of she couldn't say sociopath, she had no awareness of that, like what that is. But she knew good and evil, right? So she knew that his family was satanic, so she fostered this awareness of their satanicness in me from a young age. And so from a young age, I could make that distinction of me and him and separate him out. And so from a young age, he was never able to control me and foster codependencies like to the degree that he did with everyone else. He still did. I mean, it's impossible growing up with a father like that not to feel codependent upon him to some degree. And what he did was he used those codependencies throughout my 20s to keep me under control, but also to prevent me from having financial success. So at 32 years old, I've literally tried 5 or 6 different business models, and I've tried 5 or 6 different academic pursuits. And despite being very capable, I learned to read when I was very young, and I read a lot growing up, and I used to be very, very eloquent. I still have some speaking ability, um, some linguistic ability, but through stress and especially the last 2 or 3 years, just like being conditioned to fail, because every single pursuit, like every single context I form with my dad where my dad is the partner in the thing, he undermines me by not fulfilling his obligations. And so he does enough to where like I have enough to eat and enough to drink and I have enough to live off of on a very like minimal level. But what he's promised to do that will enable me to complete an academic certification or a college degree or a business venture of some sort, he never follows through on. So to the rest of the world, it appears like he's been supporting me for 10 or 12 years, and I'm just a lazy son who doesn't want to do anything, you know. And then people who are codependent upon him, they're not willing to challenge that perception in themselves at all, because the moment they do that, they become like some version of me in relationship to him. They become his enemy the moment they try to have a clear sense of reality as it is, not as he wants them to see it. And so they're psychologically codependent on him. So the second thing he's done is at the age of 32, despite having a lot of creative capacity and a lot of intellectual ability, and having put forth a jihad, like a 12-year jihad of just immense intensity of energy output into all these various things, I have nothing to show for it, which is devastating. If you don't understand, like if someone is a creative genius and they have 12 years of energy output at full intensity during their teens and their 20s, trying to become financially independent, and at 32 they're still not, and they're not sexually fulfilled or have it's very difficult for them to have a sexually fulfilling situation, because if you have minimal resources and you're just trying to survive, it's that's not when you're feeling it the most. You know what I'm saying? So it's like it's difficult, and like the Pakistani context and the Muslim context, everyone's married by the time they're 20, 21, 22. So if you're 32 trying to get married for the first time, that's kind of weird too, right? So he's put me in this place where like nothing is winnable. It's really difficult to win. So 30 third third thing he's done, so that's finances, that's socio-sexual dynamics. Third thing he's done, he's really socially isolated me in the sense that, separate from the sexuality thing, is that because he's pharaoh and he's fostered all these codependencies in my maternal family. It's like I don't have family. Like I cannot have family the family that I was born into, I cannot be family with them unless I become his slave and accept that everything that he's done to sabotage me over the last 12 years was actually somehow my fault. Other than trusting him, that's a separate issue. We can talk about that, but other than trusting him, it's somehow my own inability, it's my own stupidity, it's my own something, right? Fourth thing he's done, I'm at an age at 32 because of the immense stress at a certain point, gaslighting. You should become familiar with that term. You've been gaslit so much and you've been conditioned to sabotage. You have all this creative genius and you've been conditioned to lose repeatedly. You know what I mean? That you're going to be sabotaged. So it becomes really difficult to trust in yourself or trust in a purpose and pursue it without a lot of inhibition and a lot of self-questioning coming up all the time, to the point where you cannot psychologically consistently pursue something. It becomes really difficult. And also, because you put so much output, your brain gets tired. At 32, like, I feel like my brain is tired, you know, and I don't have the resources to really like feed myself the right nutrition, to, you know, get some oxygen therapy, you know, to relax a little bit, spend like a week or two meditating, right? Like, it's become difficult to kind of like, there's so much, like, there's the genius is in cognitive decline at 32. And, you know, if I don't have an intervention now, it can't grow back later, and it won't, you know, it becomes difficult to heal yourself if there's not immediate intervention, which is really difficult. And, you know, right now coronavirus is going on, and so I can't travel. Even the resources I have, I can't invest into that type of thing. And so that's a whole nother thing, cognitive like decline after being gaslit for 17 years straight, you know. And the thing is with my dad, it's like I stopped trusting him when I was like 18, but then he used my aunts and my uncles from my maternal side. I never trusted the paternal side anyways, but he used aunt and uncles from my maternal side, who turned out to also be his pawns, because he fosters codependencies in everyone he's in a relationship with, right? He cannot have a normal relationship as a narcissist, as a sociopath. Like, he doesn't know what that is. All he has is codependency. That's all he fosters. He can never be in a relationship where he has, either he's codependent on someone, like he's codependent on his eldest brother, or he has to have other people codependent on him, right? That's the only, there's this hierarchy of narcissism, this hierarchy of sociopathy that's forming around him, this hierarchy of slavehood. You know, otherwise there's no way to be in relationship with him or anyone in my paternal family, right? And so I'm like isolated from family that way. And then what's happened is, because over the last 17 years, most of I'm a devout Muslim, and so honestly, like, and I'm one of the faithful, and so, like, honestly, the closest relationship I can have, like a really committed friendship, has to be with people of that faith, you know? Like, it's not like I can't form other sorts of friendships, and that's the thing. Over the last 17 years, human beings need socialization, and so I've socialized in various groups, you know, in various social groups organized according to certain social values that I partially held but didn't fully hold. So I was part of integral organization. I was part of libertarian kind of Louisiana, down by the Bayou friends, and then, you know, I had all sorts of friend groups, like my high school friends, my college friends, but I was never able to fully participate that and keep going with that social group, partially because I didn't really buy into the value set that organized them as fully as they did, and secondly because, you know, I didn't have the resources. Like, I've had this experience like repeatedly during my life where I have like one best friend, one best guy friend, and that person recognizes me as someone who might be even more talented than them, but this person that gets to actualize their talent because, you know, their family situation, or like, family situation, or the fact that the premises that they've been given are kind of in touch with reality. So, you know, they have the habit of doing, like, they have a job of a certain type and they're working towards something, whereas my whole life I was inhibited from getting a job and becoming independent. I was always told, "Oh no, here's the money to do this. Here's the money to do that." But it was like initially given to me, but the moment I started to really pursue the thing, it never showed up consistently, you know. And so like I'm kind of socially isolated in that, like all the like good deep like male friendships I've had is like my friend has gone on to succeed beyond me, which I don't want to hold them back at all. And I never have this thing where the friendship breaks or anything, right? The friendship doesn't really break. It's just like they go on, and you know, at a certain point, it's like I'm not really pinging them as much, and they're kind of they're maybe in a different city or something, and they're not pinging me as much. But it's still like friends. Like if I made it, I could still like call them, and we'd be like, okay, chill, you know, we'd be cool. But that's the thing about America is like people don't really like invest in each other in that way. Like if someone really has a difficult, like I literally have a sociopathic father, and if I have that situation, people aren't really like, when it's really difficult and it's really involved like that, like people aren't willing to like really help with that, you know. So like really close friends I've had that, you know, I felt like brotherhood with, they've gone on in that manner too. And I've never had this manner of trying to ask them to help with something like this, but at the same time, it kind of feels crappy that they didn't voluntarily do that, you know? And so social isolation of that kind. And then also, now have actual physical health issues. You know, my father gave me a certain premise under which I traveled back home about uh, 3 years ago now. I traveled back. I was outside of the country. I traveled back to home in Louisiana, and I came there with a certain premise, and he immediately changed it. And that was after 16 or 17 years of his gaslighting. That was where I started to break down a little bit. And when I started to break down, he what he did was, when I started to break down, uh, what you call it. See, that's that cognitive decline kicking in now. So yeah, so I, you know, I didn't know what to do. I didn't have any financial resources, or at least not sufficient for what we had agreed to, and I was just exhausted from constantly researching and reorganizing the plan, you know. And so I just kind of like gave up, and I was like in my room for like a year and a half. And what happened was, you know, I would just be in my room. We had this cleaning lady come and clean the house, and you know, I would just be in my room all the time, so she never cleaned. And I've never had this happen before. And literally like my bed broke, and I was getting so just tired and just mentally exhausted and lazy that I wouldn't even change the sheets. And I was just sleeping on the bed without sheets for a while. And turns out there's like dust that'll build up inside a mattress, and if you sleep on it without sheets and stuff, and like, you know, like there's a certain dust allergy you can develop. And I developed that, and I didn't have, like, it was happening. And then what happened was the smell of my room, like the smell of the carpet and the smell of the like the room itself, not that it was dirty or anything other than the mattress with the dust built up over years. um it became to the point where even with like hypoallergenic everything, like when I would go into my room, the smell would trigger my allergy. Like the smell of the room, like the environment of the room would trigger my allergy. And I didn't have anywhere to go, and I was barely talking to my family. I didn't know what to do. So over a year and a half, I developed severe inflation, and it made my knees really, my knees are, I have bad knees anyways. So my knees were hurting. And, you know, if you know about chronic inflation, if you get severe inflation, even for 6 or 8 months, that's devastating to your health. And so I had it for about a year, and I didn't know what to do, you know. So like I have like cognitive issues going on, partially, mostly because of my father, but because then I developed this habit, you know, of using certain substances, nothing serious, but basically just marijuana, you know, when I became extremely stressed, not all the time, but when I become really agitated and stressed with my father's gaslighting, and I have no idea what to do, and I just need to relax, you know, not, I'll go, you know, it's not all the time, it's sometimes. When I do it, I'll do it for like a week. I'll go get like an eighth or something and smoke for a week straight, but that's it, you know. Once I run out, I'm out, you know. And that's it. Like I'm never addicted to it like continuously. It just like sometimes I feel like I need it when I'm super full of anxiety, and I don't know what to do when my dad's been manipulating reality and context and triangulating everyone against me and stuff for a long time. That seems to happen, you know and so I have like literal health issues. I have inflation. I have this breathing issues where I can't really take a satisfying deep breath anymore. I have cosmetic issues because of it. Also, when I was a kid, I got this infection on my nails, right? And my dad's known about it my whole life. My whole family comments on it when they want to narcissistically subtract from me. But like, no one's ever helped me get a cure for it. It's really simple. Here in Georgia, I'm putting the cream on it sometimes. I already Basically, it's a fungal infection. And like, if you scratch your skin, like, everyone needs to scratch sometimes, and if you scratch, like, it'll infect the skin. I've never had it anywhere on my body, just on my elbows. If I scratch, like, on the bend of my elbows, it'll get infected and it can get pretty bad. And the other thing is, I had a really full head of hair when I was a kid, like real full head of hair. And basically, my dad didn't lose his hair until, like, he lost it gradually, like, started losing it when he got 35 and then kind of lost it. And the same thing with my maternal uncle. Like, one of my maternal uncles still has his whole hair. My dad's side of the family, there's plenty of the men have all of their hair still. But basically, because I was scratching my head with this, like, my hair is gone. And the way I know it's from the fungal infection and not from naturally losing your hair is because my hair got really thin on the sides and the back too, where it wouldn't get thin if it was just from, like, DHT, hair loss, or whatever. And so I have all these, like, cosmetic issues. I'm 32 years old and I just feel tired and exhausted. And like, I see no way out. It's not like a mental health issue. It just, my dad has repeatedly such complexified my life. And to really, like, feel like I have justice and I'm restored to where my potential would have been actualized to if my father hadn't undermined me and sabotaged me this way repeatedly. It's at least, like, I mean, I need tons of regenerative medicine, tons of leadership training, therapeutic training, all, like, therapy. And and to pursue my purpose, because it's not just about the actualization of my potential or being healthy or having, like, fulfilling sexual relationships. It's also the ability to enact the spiritual purpose which I've been devoted to and dedicated since childhood. you know and so it's like, to enact that purpose, I feel like I need so much resource to be fully myself and to fully actualize my potential, which has been devastated through my dad doing all sorts of. I'm not talking about how he did it right now. I'm just talking about what it feels like being 32 years old, sorry, and the son of a sociopath. What that's like, what the impact is on your life, what is the effects it has on you. So I just want to speak to where I'm at 32. And now I feel like I'm breaking free because I have a little bit of a nest egg. I have a little bit of financial resource. I really don't know what to do with it because it's not that much. I'm living off of it and I'm trying to get my health right and I'm trying to figure out, like, what to do with the money. But, like, you know, I feel like I'm free now, because worse, I'll go get a job or I'll do something, I'll figure it out. But I'm never going back to my family because they're shitty as fuck. The shittiest human beings ever. And my sisters, mark my words, I'm saying this on tape, whatever date this is uploaded on YouTube. My sister will kill people as a doctor because she has no moral sensibility or moral responsibility at all. She's just as sociopathic as my father. Shameless at the effect she has on other people, and, like, shameless about taking responsibility for what she said or promised or has a natural responsibility for, like, totally shameless, right? And this, she will kill patients, and she will get, if she can get away with it, she will not take responsibility for it. So mark my words, I'm telling the Louisiana Medical Board or whoever the authority is, watch out for this person. And I will testify to it because people will die at her hand. People like my sister and people like the people I grew up with in Muslim community mostly just go into medicine to make money. And I feel like the Louisiana medical kind of, like, institution, it kind of gives you a certain mindset and a certain psychology which is hyper pragmatic and shitty. Like, I would not want to go to a hyper pragmatic person to get healed from issues that I'm having. So, anyways, I think that's it. I just wanted to speak to what it's like being 32, the son of a sociopath. I do feel like I'm kind of breaking free. I'm calling for support, I'm calling for justice. So, on this channel, I just try to be honest about what it's like being the son of a sociopath. And, I'm not like I would like support. I'm just calling because I feel like on this channel what I want to do is like speak to what the devastation of being the son of a sociopath, and then go to the other extreme where this process I want to offer hope, where like you go from the depths of hell to actually just like surpassing all expectations and going so far beyond what you would have gone even without the devastation of your father, like going 10 times beyond that. And I want to kind of document that process on this channel. And so at the beginning I'm just going to be speaking about where I'm at and how it is, and then I'll do other stuff in the future. So I'll talk to you guys soon. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.